Today's episode of the Silly Goose Gang podcast is brought to you by our friend Waqar Rasheed from Titan Sports over in Pakistan. He is the manufacturer of this wonderful William Wallace rash guard that he made for us. And if you want to go check him out to get some stuff made, you can get him at thetitansports.com and on Instagram at Titan Sportswear. So definitely go check him out if you want some stuff manufactured.
The Silly Goose Gang podcast.
Up. And we are back with episode 70 of the Silly Goose Gang podcast. And we're delighted to be joined this evening by Matt Beaudreau of Apogee Strong. So, Matt, thanks very much for joining us this evening or this afternoon, your time.
It is a pleasure, brother. I already like you guys, man. Just in the few minutes we've gotten to chat over here, and you already admitting that the shit you're speaking isn't really English or anything. Like, it's great, man. I don't know. I was looking for, we're on the screen, so I was already looking for subtitles, but the fact that you guys threw it out there earlier, we're good to go, man. We're going to be friends.
Even as Ali was introducing you, he fucked up.
I did.
That's
I
all
did
right.
indeed. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep going.
You just get right to it, man. That's how it's going to be good. I love it. It's a pleasure, man. It really is, honestly.
Absolutely.
This is a really cool looking little setup you've got there. Is this in your house or?
No, man. I wish it was. So I own a few schools out here in Northern California. I help open these schools all over the world, and so this was this is the very first campus that we bought actually, and had this podcast room already set up in it, man. They already had this recording studio set up, which is, as soon as I saw that, I was like, dude, we have to have this building. So yeah, this is where I get to go get away. It's where I run my podcast out of. So yeah, it's one of the campuses I own. It's a good spot.
Awesome. Me and Ali are actively looking for something like that. It'd be cool eventually when we get shit together and sort a little room out. That'd be fucking awesome. It looks cool. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So so you're in Northern California.
We're in Northern California. Yeah. Okay. So we're not too far from Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. So
how is California today? What's on fire?
That might be a loaded ass question, man, depending on how your part of the world views California. But I've always been a little different than the California flavor in some ways, but in some ways I'm definitely not. We'll still, we'll say dude, and we'll take things pretty take things with a grain of salt. But California's all right. There's still a whole lot of good people in California, regardless of the fact that the state's going batshit crazy around other things. So it's all right.
Yeah, we've got one of our previous guests, our friend Fletch, is in. He's West LA. Is that right, Ali?
West LA, yeah, West Los Angeles.
LA, dude,
so.
LA's that's a whole different state, man. Yeah. So I mean, California. I always tell people, Northern California is one state, Southern California is another state, LA is its own state, and San Francisco is its own state too, right? Like there's a bunch of states in one, man. So hey, you're the best. You're the best. Thank you so much. So yeah, it's a weird.
Oh man, now I need to know what you're eating because I'm hungry.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I have no idea what you guys. Hold on, you guys don't have people that just bring you food during podcasts?
No.
See, now you forget the studio. You need the food delivery first.
Ali's married with 3 kids, but I'm single with no kids because I'm unlovable. So nobody brings me anything.
and I'm married with 3 kids, so my wife's never bringing me anything. So either way, we're both screwed.
That's so funny. Oh, that's awesome.
Ali's married with 3 kids. I'm single, but we're both lonely. So
yeah, that's awesome. I don't know who I'm more sad for, but good for you.
Pretty much why we started this podcast, give us people to talk to.
Exactly.
Awesome.
It needs done. It's funny what you're saying though, Matt, about like the California being built, because I think, especially over in Scotland, growing up, California was very much Baywatch, Hollywood, LA, and you kind of forget that, as you say, that northern part of California is totally different to that whole LA, Santa Monica kind of, the TV version of California.
dude, you forget that California is bigger than most countries.
Mm.
Right? It really is. California is a big ass state. I'm talking geographically speaking. It is a giant state, man. So yeah, as you go up and down the coast, you've got that Baywatch, LA, whatever, but you also have the really big city, in San Francisco. You've got the northern part where everybody's up in the mountains. Where I am, I'm out on a freaking ranch, man. I'm out on a ranch, and all my neighbors have ranches and horses, and it's so California has got quite literally everything.
Yeah, that's when I think about like California, I think of like the Beach Boys. My dad was a Beach Boys fan when we were growing up, so we used to go around in a Volkswagen camper van and listen to the Beach Boys. So that's when I think
the Beach Boys.
Yeah, like I think of Hot Rods and the Beach Boys. That's what I think of.
Yeah. Which again, there's definitely part of that, right? But you've got so much more too. And as far as the Beach Boys go, man, my dad was he got to meet the Beach Boys. A couple of them, but he met them when they came to visit Charles Manson in San Quentin. Which is a story not a lot of people know. Charles Manson actually helped write a couple of the Beach Boys songs, so not a lot of people know that. So there's your fun fact of the day.
Holy shit!
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Amazing.
All kinds of places today, gentlemen.
That's that is the conversations we like. So I think Charles Manson stuff's fucking. Something else just came up about Charles Manson recently, and I can't remember. It was something that I hadn't seen. It was something fucking bizarre. Fuck, it'll come to me at some point. But yeah, the whole thing was
in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, in the middle of the conversation, I'll shout something out. But yeah, that was a whole. I know I watched, on the Joe Rogan thing with, they were talking about how it was like a CIA fucking experiment with him. They were giving him acid and all sorts of shit. It's a mind fuck, a real mind fuck.
It is, man. It's a whole lot. I mean, it's already a weird ass story. Even if you just go by conventional wisdom, it's a weird story. But you start getting into the details, man. It's some crazy shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at that, man. We're only 5 minutes in, and we already got to Charles Manson and the Beach Boys. That's pretty solid. You've got food, Ali's fucked up sentences, and we're talking about Charles Manson and the Beach Boys. I mean, fucking, let's just call this done. It's a good day.
Can't top that shit, right?
Yeah, just cap it off right there. You're welcome. Yeah.
So nicely. Tell us a little bit, Matt, about the schools, because that's Ali was explaining sort of in some detail about your schools, and it sounds fucking really like a fantastic idea.
Yeah, man. They are. It is. I say school because it is the word that gets closest to it, that gets people to understand what we're talking about. But the reality is we're building these workspaces for young people. Right. I mean, that's really what it is. So I've got a few of these that I own here in Northern California. I'm also part of this governance council for a number of entrepreneurs around the world who are building these programs, and we're doing this together. So it's essentially a bunch of entrepreneurs that have gone, well, all right, school in its conventional style is a hot mess. We've always known that. We know it's not producing the kind of citizens that we want. So we're going to create an entrepreneurial version that we think kind of remedies that. So we've got our kids, here on these campuses, they're taking ownership, massive responsibility on campus for everything. So even this food that I got right here, our executive chef is a teenager, right? Our executive chef is a teenager who hires other teenagers from campus to build out real food every single day. And they know they got to get the food out on time to all the other kids on campus. There's no adults in there running that kitchen. It's just the teenagers and making real food. So when I say they have massive responsibility, they've got massive responsibility. They clean everything, they clean this place up. They're starting businesses. They're having these daily Socratic conversations because we're not telling them what to think. We're teaching them how to think. They're driving their own academic journey, and then they're producing kind of this real world work that actually matters, man. So, we got kids on campus that are, some of our campuses making $40, $50, $60, $80, $100,000 while they're in high school.
Jesus.
I mean, I don't know too many other places like that. I told you guys I live on a ranch, right? Got a couple horses. My horses were purchased by my daughters. My daughters are 10 and 8.
That's amazing.
And they bought the horses when they were 8 and 6. And that was
Jesus.
on money out of their businesses that they started here on these campuses, right? So we are essentially creating labs for building out amazing freaking humans.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So
How do teenagers take to being given structure? You know, how do they find it? Is it difficult in the process? And then do you see it becoming, clog second to understand how they're built into it as it goes on? Or
yeah, that's a good question, man. So for our oldest students, it goes really one of a few different ways. If they have come up within this system, if they started here when they were 5, then by the time they're 13, 14, they truly don't need adults for really anything at all. Like the adults are useless if they started at that age. If they came in, they were 13, 14 or whatever, and they came from another school system altogether. They came from a conventional schooling, whatever. That transition is ridiculously hard for them to make, right? And so we're finding them everywhere in between. So you have some that, start with us. And to be honest, I've got 10-year-olds that are here that have never gone anywhere else, and they don't need the adults anymore. They run their days as 10-year-olds. They run their days like a Fortune 500 company. They are ridiculously productive. They sit down and they have adult level conversations. They map out their day, their objectives. They go forward and crush it, and they'll have end of the day meetings to figure out what went right, what went wrong, and what do they need to do better the next day. Those are my 10-year-olds, right? If they've never gone anywhere else. If they've come from the outside, we've got to really hit them with some crazy ass structure to their day right at the beginning, and not structure in a school sense, but structure in a full-time job, hardcore business sense. And if they can hack it, if they can turn that mindset over, then they'll do fine. But I'd say if they come in at 13, 14, 50, 60% of them aren't gonna be able to stand a chance. It's like a transition from going from college to the real world working. And all of a sudden you're going from college where you're just playing, you're still playing academia and shit. And then you're going into the workforce and getting thrown a management level position. You're a jackass. You have no idea what to do. It's that same kind of transition. It's hard.
Now, just because you're talking about 10-year-olds who don't need adults, is it ever a concern, that kids of that age, being so switched on that they're missing out on just fucking playing in the dirt, digging holes, and doing shit that we did?
Yeah. What's interesting is they do both at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
We actually have more play time involved for our kids than any other school I know of, especially up through the years where play is really, really relevant, right? So developmentally speaking, that's a big part of what we do too, is we follow that development. So when we start talking about our 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, the majority of those few years here on this campus is almost all play-based, almost the entire freaking thing. And it's all social and emotional type things. They're learning how to be happy. They're learning how to get along with other people. They're learning how to treat other people well. And they're learning to make good choices. They're learning to make good decisions. All of those things are the foundation. It's really not until they hit about 10 where we start implementing some other responsibilities. When about 9 or 10, we start implementing some other responsibilities, but even those responsibilities are gamified, right? Like you don't need to coax a 10-year-old to try to beat the next level in whatever video game he's excited about, right? He's just gonna go in there and just gonna get at it. Like he just wants to beat the next level, and he wants to get better, and he wants to get these points, and he's gonna socialize with his friends, while he's doing it, and they're all gonna talk shit to each other, and they're just gonna try to beat that next level and get at it, right? All of the responsibilities they have on campus, including the big projects they're taking on, including the businesses they're running, we gamify all of that at that young age. It's a game to them. So they're wildly productive while also just enjoying the shit out of all of it. They're the least stressed kids I have ever seen and the most productive. right? And so then they get into middle school and they start to be able to grasp some of this stuff that was, kind of a little, they can grasp things that are a little more abstract, and then we can give them even more responsibility. And we start to get these patterns from these kids by middle school, where we see what kind of things they're really good at, what kind of things they're really excited about. And then their entire high school career is all about building a life around those. So you've got the most productive young people you have ever seen, and the most self-confident, the most mentally at peace, the most self-aware. It's ridiculous. And it's almost the only part that makes me feel bad about it is when I see other kids that don't have the opportunity to experience the same thing.
It is interesting when you look at traditional schools. Obviously, I don't know how school is done in America, but just looking at the way we did school, almost all of it is completely fucking irrelevant. I've never used any of it ever.
Yep.
It is amazing that we do school consistently the same way, and you think, okay, is this? It feels like at a certain point we have to go, is this the best way to do it?
That's right.
And I'm not sure.
That's right. But and that's on purpose, by the way.
Yeah, well, I would think
it's on
so,
purpose that it stayed that way. It's on purpose, because it's not the best we can do, but it's the easiest way to get mass compliance over shit like, hey, we need to shut down the whole country. There's no reason for it, but just do what we say. And the entire country of Scotland goes, all right, yeah, cool, sounds good. You're right.
Not me.
We don't know why you're right, but you're the authority. So I guess
Not
that
me.
sounds good. Yeah, not me either. Exactly.
I'm getting a little more vocal and a little bit more crazy about this whole situation now. It gets to the point after a while you go, I can't keep just keeping my mouth shut. We have to start saying this is fucking nonsense.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
But that's it, right? You develop a population that's got, no ability to truly think. There's a propensity to just bow down and bend the knee to anybody who claims authority and claims it the loudest and most consistently. And we don't have the ability to rationally think through or argue through, well, this doesn't make any sense, and here's how I can change that. Here's how I can do something. Like, it's just, you numb the population.
What I find genuinely amazing is as I've seen girls that I know on social media who were a little while ago, there was a police officer had fucking raped and murdered a woman, and there was a whole lot of, and rightly so, women saying, my body, my choice, don't tell me what to do, you have to, all this kind of stuff. And then there was, in America, I know there was because of the Texas abortion laws being changed, and it was my body, my choice. And then they're now saying, no, you have to get vaccinated. You go about what? I thought it was my body, my choice. Which way do you want this to be? You can't have both.
That's right.
Do you know? It seems absolutely insane to me.
For sure.
So
you can, if you train the population to just deal with things from an emotional standpoint and from a standpoint of obedience, you can get away with some of the most logical, inconsistent horseshit you have ever seen in your life, right? It's not accidental. We've trained the population to be all about division, and we've trained the population to outsource their thinking, and we're reaping the the shitty benefits of that.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this to an aunt of mine, and it was after Scotland introduced the vaccine passport for nightclubs and I think, is it places that play music, like venues that play music?
Yeah, indoor venues with more than 1,000, outdoor venues with more than 10,000, or any gathering of more than 10,000, which kind of hits the big sporting events in Scotland: football, rugby. You have to show a vaccine passport to sit in a stadium and watch 90 minutes of soccer, football. And
I was saying this just ends up creating a two-tier society, and it's not by accident. This is completely designed to divide a country, and now they're going to extend it. It's now going to be pubs, restaurants.
Mhm.
It's fucking insanity.
Mhm. Yep.
It's, in fact, it's beyond insanity. It's criminal.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly
Yeah.
It's fucking criminal.
Yeah,
And you know what I was saying to my aunt, and she looked at me like I was crazy, and saying, if everybody just complies, we'll get back to normal. I said no. And I said, not everybody in Germany was a Nazi in 1939. They just went, well, it's just easier to comply.
That's right.
And then before you know it, the people that don't like are wearing yellow stars.
That's right.
And she was going, that's crazy. Yes, it is crazy, but it's literally happening now.
Right. It's the same pattern that's happening right now. That's
Yep.
exactly right. The Nazis were not all these evil people starting out. They were just the people who went along with it.
Followed along.
Why? They were the nice people. They were the nice ones that refused to push back. That's exactly right. And so, we're building that out again and again. We look at education as, there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of money involved in keeping education the same. And it's the same people who have money to make and politics to win in keeping education the same that are putting forth these mandates. So, we're doing our best to fix it from the ground up.
It sounds like definitely a good way. Just to give you a bit of background in terms of what happened in Scotland, going back, Matt, in terms of education. When me and Chris were at school, we had a kind of academic system that was all based around two types of qualifications: standard grades and then higher grades at the tail end of high school. And Matt, I've got, as Chris said, I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 boys that are now 17 and 18. And just as they were starting high school, so they were finishing off, we've got primary school, which takes you up to the age of about 12, and then high school kind of takes you through your teenage years up to like 18 in Scotland. Just as they were joining high school, the Scottish government decided, let's change all the education system around. We're going to change it to this curriculum for excellence, and we're going to award a national certificate based on different grades. So my boys went into the first year of that, Aaron particularly, who was my oldest son. And we went along on we have like PTA meetings, meetings with the teachers. And I was kind of saying to the teacher, so how does this relate to what I know as standard grades? And the teachers were actually having to say, we don't know ourselves because we haven't been told. We've just been told to deliver this curriculum for excellence, but there's no set text, there's no notes, there's nothing to run from. So we're kind of having to do a bit of a Frankenstein model of what we've been doing for the last 25 years, 30 years, and what we think this new way of working is going to be in 3 years' time, because there was no plan, but they literally said, we're going to implement it from now. And I've seen an impact on my boys of them having gone through that, and the difference between the two. And it's I suppose the word we use is criminal, that there hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, certainly an option within Scotland to do something like the programs that you've set up and other people have set up around the world from what you're talking. Because certainly Logan especially, I think, would have excelled in that kind of, because he's not that I'm saying the way you're doing it isn't academic, but I think, the academic structure that Scotland uses of at 9 o'clock, you're going to do maths for half an hour, and then you're going to go to geography for half an hour, and then you're going to go to modern studies for half an hour, and then you'll have 20 minutes off to stand about with your friends, and then you'll come back in, and that continued. And it was designed so that they taught you enough that you could pass the exam.
Yeah.
There was no critical thinking involved, like you're saying. There was none of that. They were being taught what to think. They weren't being shown how to think.
That's right. And how does that transfer over into anything that he's doing now? With that's the whole thing. So again, we don't, I'm not anti-academia at all. And kids take on academia, academia here. They take on a number of different academic sort of programs that they'll weave in and out. But the question should always be why? Like why certain thing. Math, yes, people need to understand math. Do they need algebra though? Usually no. Do they need geometry? Depends on what they're doing. Do they need calculus? Almost never. Right?
I'm nearly 37 and I've never used Pythagoras' theorem once. Never.
At all. That's it, man. That's exactly right. And I told, I told my parents last year, some of the parents on campus, is that, I went through school and figured out the game very early. So I got all my straight A's. I got straight A's in every friggin' math class because I figured out the game of it and figured out how to pass all those courses. But I went back Now, running multiple businesses, I went back and took an algebra 2 test and I got a 19%. That was all guessing, right? I don't know how to do it. So did I really learn it? I certainly haven't applied it, but I'm also doing fine, right? So when school is built around academia, much of which, like we were saying, much of which is not going to be used later, then what are we doing? Like, what should school actually be for? Shouldn't it be about developing the human? Shouldn't it be about the ability to really dig down and figure out who that person is, what they're excited about, what their gifting is, give the basic foundational knowledge you need, but then give them the self-awareness and the self-confidence and the adaptability to go forward and do something interesting, make a life that they want to actually live? What if we actually took that sort of thing? You'd have a completely different mindset of the people that are coming out of that. And so that's, again, that's our focus.
Yeah, it's I like it. When the more I look at at school, you just think, why? This just seems dumb. It just seems like something that we're doing because we've always done it.
Yeah. Well, today, did you get up today and whip out a math textbook and go through a bunch of things before we got on the podcast?
No. I got up and squatted. And I had to use math to count the plates.
There you go. That's right. You had to do math to count the plates, and there it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's as much as math as I need. But yeah, it's it's yeah, man. Maybe we could have a school in Scotland at some point, right?
Dude, we get some entrepreneurs that are out there ready to roll, man. Let's do it. We're putting them all over the place. And then what Tim and I are building through Apogee is, we're making that a virtual deal. So we do have young men from all over the world, and we're going to expand that to integrate some more of the kind of the high school component to it as well, for young guys that don't want to just add a mentorship program and they'd rather just have a bunch of virtual brothers and put a virtual high school. We'll expand it to that as well. So yeah, man, I don't want to just keep this to the US,
How much easier does it make having somebody like Tim on board, just because he has a massive platform, massive following?
That's a huge help. I know how to build the schools. He's got a massive following from all the other things that he's done. And both of us have, we get along really well and have the same mind frame about pretty much friggin' everything. So it was just a natural, it made sense. It was a natural partnership, right? And it was, the partnership extended into like, okay, well, let's build this together. Hey, make sure you're saying something on your platform because more people are going to hear about it. And then I'm going to help you build out your campus and your school too. So helping each other.
Where did you guys, where do you guys go back to? Do you, friends for years or?
So we met years ago. So I used to fight as well, right? And so we met years ago. I obviously didn't go to the UFC like he did, but had some fights back when it was even sketchier, and there was no blood test, no whatever. We're in the back of an airplane hangar and let's get down, so so I've gotten to build out a pretty cool network from just from that sport as it is. So we had stayed loosely connected. And then I was out hunting. You guys follow the UFC?
Oh yeah.
Follow some of those. So was out hunting with Chad Mendes, is a buddy of mine. We were out hunting and he had kind of mentioned Tim, and I'm like, man, I haven't talked to that dude in a while. So I reached back out, and so we were just kind of loosely chatting back and forth. And when I got the idea for what we wanted to do with Apogee, he was the first guy that I thought of, man. And I was just like, man, I know your mindset is around building up the younger generation. I know your mindset is around, getting back to building up strong young men, because we just don't have enough good men, and I know he was there. So I gave him a call, man, was like, hey, we need to chat about this. And he's like, let's roll.
Tim, I think me and Ali would both say that, if we had to build a team, an end of the world team, Tim would be one of the first picks. He'd be one like top 2 or 3. Like, Tim Kennedy, probably Jocko, and then there's a couple of UK guys that are crazy as hell. You go, yep, those guys.
For sure. And a part of it too, obviously he's skilled, as far as all that goes with his military, the special forces background, the fighting background, he's skilled, but he's also batshit crazy, man, where he'd actually enjoy the whole thing.
I remember telling a friend of mine who me and Ali are both fight fans, and I remember speaking to a friend of mine I came from a boxing background, so there was my old coach. He doesn't like UFC, he doesn't like jiu-jitsu, he thinks it's all nonsense. And we're talking about it, and who's fighting tonight? And I was like, oh man, Tim Kennedy's fighting tonight. It's like, I don't know who he is. I goes, he's the guy who I can't remember what happened. Like ISIS put like a fucking kill list in the US, and then Tim Kennedy posted his address on Twitter, and he's like, come fight me. It's like, this guy's fucking crazy.
Oh, he's nuts, dude. Yeah, he's nuts. He's got issues, and he's generally what you see is what you get too. When you look and you're like, all right, that dude's a little squirrely, he's a little goofy. Something's opposite. Like that's him, 100%. Like that.
We spoke to. I don't know if you're familiar with Clint Emerson.
Yeah.
We spoke to Clint Emerson early on in the podcast when we were completely out of our depth at that point. And speaking to Clint was like that. You speak to Clint and you're like, oh, okay. This guy's because everybody knows somebody, from drinking when you're younger, and they maybe had an uncle who was in, the SAS or but a lot of it is bullshit. And then you speak to somebody like Clint, and you're like, oh,
he's different. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
I understand. He's killed people.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
He's legitimately killed people.
For sure. You talked to Tim about just so like he had if you ever heard him tell the story about getting, somebody was gonna break into his house in Austin, Texas. Talk about picking the wrong fucking house to go and try to break in, right? But this clown, somehow made his way to Tim's house. And so Tim already had been made aware, caught him on camera, he's got things going off on the inside, figuring out what's going on. So he's watching this dude try doors, and he's watching this dude try, all of these different things. But as soon as the guy got up to the window of, Tim's son, then Tim, flanks him, comes around behind and puts a gun up to the back of the guy's head and is like, look, I've murdered a lot of people, but never anybody on my front lawn. Would you like to be the first? And the way he describes it too, damn well, he literally just asked the question like that. Like, you want a fucking scoop of chocolate ice cream or vanilla? Like, it's just that plain. Like, would you like me to blow your head off or not?
Yeah.
I'm fine with either.
Yeah. It's so just let's go back a little bit and talk about your fight career and some sketchy hangers, man. What was what was the beginnings of that? Like, where did you have martial arts experience previously, or?
Yeah, I grew up kickboxing. So did you guys ever see the movie you ever see the movie Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah.
Okay. So his brother, who Tong Po puts in the wheelchair at the very beginning, right?
Yes.
Remember, his brother gets put in the wheelchair. So that guy that played his brother in that movie was my kickboxing coach.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was the world heavyweight kickboxing champ for a long time. So before K1 and all this stuff, when it wasn't as big as it was now, but he was the man, so as far as that went. So he's from my hometown. So I grew up kickboxing, and I'd had, roughly 100 amateur kickboxing fights. So I already had the stand-up background. But I was in college and hadn't competitively kickboxed for a little while, and was walking by a mat room one day, and I see these guys in there just fucking getting at it and grappling, and I'm going, all right, this is cool, but it looks different than wrestling. And UFC had just kind of started kicking off, and I'd seen some of that. I'm like, it looks like some of that stuff those some of those Gracie guys or whatever do. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go in there because I know how to scrap, and I went in there and they just handed me my ass because I had no grappling ability.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, man. They let me know that was a whole different game, and I wasn't, I didn't know how to play yet, which was badass. And I was like, cool, man, I got to come back. And so I found out one of those guys was one of the original Lions Den members with Ken Shamrock's group. So I got connected loosely with Ken, but started training with Frank in the Bay Area. I don't know if you guys remember the IFL. Was the
International Fight League. Yeah.
National Fight League. Yeah.
Yeah, they had Henzo Gracie had the team, and Baz Rutten had a team, and
Boss
it was all competed.
Randy had a team, and Ken had a team, and Frank had a team, right? So you got all these teams and they were gearing up to, that had been announced that was going to be a thing. They were gearing up to get stuff going. And I was training with Frank in San Jose at the time. And he's like, hey man, are you interested in trying out for my brother's team? And I was like, wow, that's cool, man. Hey, what about yours? Like, I'm here with you, and he's like, well, this dude's going to be my 55er and this dude's going to be my 170. And I don't think you're better than either one of them. And he was right. And so I was like, all right, that's fair. I was like, shit. Okay. Yeah. I'll try out for Ken. So, it was going to be based out of Reno. And I was like, all right, I'll try out for Ken's. And she's like, all right, cool. So he hooked up kind of this tryout and the tryout wasn't too far ahead in the future. And so I was going to be going to that, but then I go back to work the next day and I get this phone call and I got on the phone and he goes, hey, this is Ken Shamrock. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, hey, you're going to come try out, next week? And I was like, yeah. He's like, cool. Tryouts are on Saturday and, we're going to start at my house and then we're going to go over to this thing. I'm like, all right, cool, man. Yeah, I'll be there. He's like, cool. Can you make it Friday? And I was like, yeah, dude, if you need me there earlier, I can make it Friday. And he's like, cool. He's like, well, actually, you're going to fight on Friday. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. He's like, can you make 170 by Friday? And I'm like, fucking yeah, of course, man. Ken Shamrock's asking me if I can make weight on Friday. Dude, I can make weight on Friday. And I'm like, cool. Hang up the phone. And I'm like, shit, I guess I just agreed to my first fight. And so that's how I kind of got roped into actually competing, because I was going to try out without actually having stepped in the ring to do a full mixed martial arts fight. Okay. And so I did my first fight, man. And Ken was actually trying to create a league of his own at that time. And so this was his first event that he was putting on. So we had Bruce Buffer announcing. We had Boss Rutan ringside. We had fucking Randy Couture ringside. We had Guy Metzger ringside. I had Dean Lister ringside. Vernon White was on the card. Kit Cope was on the card. And it was just like, I'm there for no goddamn reason, getting to fight with all of these freaking icons, Bruce announcing me, and I got all these icons right there around the thing. So that was my introduction, man, which was freaking rad. So had that. It was a great fight, man. And ended up fighting the next day. A couple of guys, Ash Bowman, who competed in Strike Force. He and I fought the next day. After my first fight. So my second fight was the next day with a broken nose against an experienced vet. And so, it just kind of went from there. So I ended up doing 9 fights altogether, was invited to move to Reno to be part of the team. Declined it for a number of things, but I ended up doing 9 fights in a very short period of time. So really good experience, man.
Yeah. The early days of MMA were really the Wild West. Just the idea of fighting 2 days in a row, like, that's such a bad idea. Such a bad idea.
So many levels, dude. Yeah, for sure.
I know, in amateur boxing, national championships regularly, even before my time, they used to fight Saturday, Sunday. That's now no longer allowed. You're not allowed to do that anymore. And that's an amateur. It's 1 fight a weekend and that's it. Because it's
for good reason.
Yeah, it's not good getting hit in the head, especially when you've cut a lot of weight and you're getting punched in the head of a big guy who wants to kill you. It's a really, really terrible idea. But man, I a reasonable amateur background as a boxer, and it's funny when you're talking about grappling, and it's like, what the. It's very difficult being good at a fight sport and then going to another kind of fight sport and going, I'm fucking terrible at this.
Yes.
I'm getting beaten up. Well, I don't understand. Why am I being choked? What the fuck?
Yes. Why is this guy? If I look at this dude, like, there's no reason I should not be mopping the floor with this guy. And he's just kicking the shit out of me. Like, it's humbling, man.
Do you still do any grappling or anything just now, or?
Yeah, not as much as I'd like to with the multiple businesses I'm running. I just don't get to anymore. And that's when my wife and I first moved from the Bay Area to the Sacramento area before we had kids. I linked up with a bunch of guys that become buddies now out here. Uriah Faber's gym is out here in this area. And actually I got Uriah coming on the podcast this week.
Amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, give Uriah a big hello from Scotland, man, for sure.
I will, man. I'll give him a big Scottish smooch. So, but I started training down here just to keep things flowing and to help those guys with their fight camps, you know. And so, I would help, you know, it was like I was Justin Buckles and Danny Castillo and, you know, some of those dudes help out with their fight camps and stuff. So I, you know, kept it going for a little while, but once I had kids and launched all these businesses,
it's tough, man.
I missed it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Just while you're talking there, Matt, about a Scottish smooch, are you familiar with the phrase a Glasgow kiss?
I am not.
So just to show you how violent Scotland is, just because you're saying a Scottish smooch, it's a well-known term, a Glasgow kiss. So Glasgow is kind of the biggest city in Scotland, so on the opposite coast to us. But a Glasgow kiss is a headbutt. It's known as a Glasgow kiss.
Okay.
So a headbutt straight to the face is a Glasgow kiss.
That's a Glasgow kiss. All right. Well, I will definitely not give him one of those.
I was going to say, awesome. So me and Ali, we train and we have a little morning class. You know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're in at 6:30 in the morning, and it works perfectly for me. You know, I'm like, you know, I'm involved in a couple of businesses, and I do some, you know, endurance stuff, some endurance like sort of triathlons and stuff. And you know, training at 6:30 in the morning is perfect. We get up and we do some grappling, and then it sets you up nicely for the day. And yeah, it's so much fun. It's just, you know, we were saying, you know, before you know, before you joined us, we were talking about it, and you know, we both say, you know, there's so many guys who, you know, would love to come to the morning class, but you know, man, I can't, you know, I'd have to set my alarm at 5:30 and get up. You know, it's like, you know, how do you do it? And you go, you just do it. See, if nothing else, we have, you know, all a bunch of guys roughly the same age, sort of mid-30s up to, you know, John, our coach, is 54. But you know, man, we have fun. You know, we all talk shit. We all rip on each other. And it's just fun, man. And you know, we have a real good class, real solid guys, and I think that's important for people just to be around that. Fucking good guys, and simulating murder in the morning.
Yes, dude. Yes, dude. No, I agree 100%. You know, and I know full well people say, you know, when I try to be clear when people are like, well, how come you don't train anymore? And it's not anything. Everybody's got the same amount of time. It's literally just the priorities right now. Yeah. My priorities are the businesses I'm building. That's it. Because I definitely miss it. But the priorities right now are the businesses, because you're right. There is no hack. There's no, you just do what you need.
You have to do the thing, man.
You just do it.
So we had, you know, for April, May time, you know, we were flying through podcasts, but you know, I'm involved in a couple of businesses, and one of them was insane, and I was also training for the Keltman, which is an extreme iron distance triathlon, and it took Ali to message me to say, let's back off the podcast for a little while. And you know, because I don't want to say I can't fucking do this, man. This is killing. Like literally, if I continue to do this, I might make myself ill. You know, trying to work, you know, 14, 15 hours a day, and then, you know, okay, now you've finished. Oh, cool, you've got to do 5 hours on the bike, and then, you know, having to do a podcast and try and be alert. So Ali said, let's give it a little miss. So I had to take a couple of months off, but and you know, when you go to the shop, you know, you're coming home and you go, I'm going to buy some things, and you know, and you'll just sigh at the till, you know, you go, oh, God, and the guy behind her, you know, the woman behind it, you know, she'll go, one of those days, and you go, yep, and you go, I know how you feel, and you go, no, you don't. No, you don't. Please don't compare us.
That brotherhood's important. You know, having a buddy that knows what's going on and being able to have the brotherhood of the things you guys are doing in the morning and talking shit to each other while choking each other out. That's important. And having somebody that just goes, hey man, pump the brakes a little bit. I'm just going to look out for you because we're too stupid to look out for ourselves. Right. Like having good solid guys, you know, helping other men. It's important. And again, you know, with the Apogee thing too, that's kind of the whole deal, is like, let's get good solid guys to pour into these young guys. Give them that perspective that
totally. With you doing the one online, Matt, just for a bit of background, I'm a trainer for a building society, so I train adults how to do their job. And since I'd always been my world was face-to-face training, facilitation, delivering workshops, right up until the pandemic hit in Scotland. So for the last 20 months, I've been doing all my training essentially through this format online. So how have you found engagement with particularly young men through the Apogee online versus the face-to-face environment? How's that worked?
Yeah.
And the differences across that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. We have to be very intentional about that. So, I'm same thing. I did a lot of the training face to face, and in the last, 7 years or so, I made my money for my family was giving keynote presentations, right? So I was traveling around the world and being on stage with live events, and you've got, 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people in an auditorium. That's a vastly different thing than sitting here and doing this. And then you add in the element of being that young man. So we just have to be very, very intentional about what we are doing with that time. So we always kick it off with our mentor, right? So we always, they're excited. They get on there and all of a sudden they've got, Leif Babin who's jumping on there with them, or they've got, Brian Callen who's, coming in as this friggin' stand-up comedian, and he's coming in and just freaking pouring into them, right? So we start off with that mentor to really just get them fired up, super high energy, and just very intentional. As soon as that mentor gets off, it's like, cool, man, what are the takeaways? What do we got? And it was just, we keep the energy going, and it's like, cool, what are victories for this week? What are some challenges you're facing? We'll have a high level discussion around something that they're interested in, grab a couple quick highlights out of the book, whatever book that they're into, and then call it good. Like, we want that energy high, because it is so difficult. They're used to, if they're going to be on a screen, they're used to playing, Call of Duty or whatever. Like, if they're on a screen, they want some high energy, some action, kind of shit. So we're very intentional about doing that, because I don't know that, it's, it's obviously it's not the same as being right there in person with them. It's just not.
No,
We're going to have more and more face to face, but yeah, it's harder.
It definitely is. And I've found that because my world has gone, all of our training courses are now virtual. And there was a definite period at the start, kind of March, April time last year, where I was having to think, like kind of you were saying, I was always in front of people. I'd have, 15, 20, 50, 70 in a room, and I'd be training them. So I'd get the buzz of being up in the front of the room, moving about, interacting, seeing body language, knowing when to change.
Yep.
And even what impacts it more, and I don't know how it's impacting you, but some of the people that I'm training don't even have a camera. So it's just a disembodied voice coming across to you because of the technology that's involved. And then there's that impact. So I suppose, as you say, I don't have the advantage of throwing out Leaf or, Brian Callen into the group to keep the energy up, but it must be good to have that option. And even you talk the books there very briefly, Matt, and I had a look over your reading list on the website, and some of the texts are pretty heavy, even for, I've probably read about half the books. Two of them in particular that struck out was Obstacle is the Way and Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. They're not easy reads. And I know what it's like having two teenage sons getting to read anything short of a cereal packet, because they want that continual interaction of, give me a game, give me something to do, give me information, don't let me sit there and read. But I think it's related to the fact that it's at school where they go, okay, everyone, so this week we're going to read this. Chris, you read the first paragraph. Matt, you read the second paragraph. Ali, you do the third paragraph. And you get people reading it and today Tom went down the Mississippi River, and it breaks it down so it's seen boring. So how are you guys, getting involved in text like that?
Yeah, it's a complete mindset shift out of exactly what you're talking about, right? I mean, reading is boring, and it's going to be concepts that are boring and stories that are boring, and we're going to do it in a boring ass fashion. But when they come into this program, they understand that they are signing up. There's a whole series of onboarding videos that they get, right? So we have a conversation, and so we're sitting here chatting, and then Ali decide, your dad and Chris is the young man. And so we sit here, have this conversation. We're like, okay, cool. We're going to get this up and running. I'm going to send an onboarding videos to Chris. that is a bunch of videos of me talking. That's giving you kind of an outline of the program. I'm going to send you these assets. It's got this whole warrior code that you are going to live by, and you're going to read all that. You're going to sign on to all of that. And then you're going to jump in on that first call. And when we have that first call with those squads, we are making sure they understand that they are choosing to be a different type of human. And it is very much a man-to-man, like, look, we are going to bring you up to our level. We don't buy into this bullshit about you being a teenager. We don't think that word means anything. We think teenager is that word wasn't even invented until the 1940s. And that's a true story. So we don't buy into that at all. So as of right now, you're a warrior. You're a young man that you're on our team, and we're going to be elite. And what an elite warrior does is trains his mind first over anything else. So these books we have, and it's in a particular fashion too, that sets the stage for that. There's a reason they read Do Hard Things first, because Do Hard Things, the entire book is about challenging the concept of what it means to be a teenager. What they're able to do. We set that stage early and expect them to rise. They will.
That reminds me of the scene in Braveheart where a young William Wallace, his dad's been killed, and he goes to live with his uncle Argyle. And he wants to learn how to use a sword.
Yeah.
And Uncle Argyle says, first you'll learn how to use this, and then we'll teach you how to use this.
That's right. That's exactly right. And he says, I don't know how to read Latin. And he says, well, that's something we'll have to remedy now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because I wanted to bring it up, but I didn't know if I'd be a dick because you guys are Scottish, and if I brought it up.
We're dicks and we're Scottish, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's a good point.
Listen,
that does go hand in hand.
You don't have to pussyfoot around Scottish people, okay? This is not fucking. This isn't fucking California, okay?
I already told you I needed subtitles, but yeah, no, dude, you're right. You're absolutely right, man. And that's my all-time favorite movie.
Well, now that you've said that, sorry, Matt. What size of rash guard would you wear if you were wearing one? I have something for you. Has Ali got it there? So I've designed a couple of rash guards, and I have let me go find. You guys talk amongst yourself. I'll go and find one for you.
We'll go and get it. Yeah,
you're going to fucking love it.
I didn't know. I didn't know if he was going down to like, hey, you California guys probably don't have to wear rash guard, and I didn't know where he was.
No. There is Chris in particular has designed a couple of rash guards for we call it the Dawn Brigade. So the guys that train in the morning is called the Dawn Brigade. So we've got one that's like a neon pink with a huge shark coming out the water like Jaws, all cartoon style. And he's designed another one, which is just a way to go and get him. And he's in the process. We're trying to create a third one where it's, are you familiar with Robert the Bruce? He was the Scottish king that won Bannockburn against English. So he's trying to design a Robert Bruce one. However, the reason Chris was asking what size rash guard you wear, as Chris reappears, is because once we know what size you are, we could then potentially look at this option.
That's awesome. Oh, dude, that's badass.
So
that's awesome. That is freaking fantastic.
This is William Wallace choking Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, and it's got some Wallace tartan on it. So
that is awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fucking really cool. So, if you want one, man, I don't know what size you wear, but I might have to get some more large ones made up. But
what size would you guess, dude?
Jack down triple XL. I like it.
Yeah, dude. I'm all of like 5'9" and 175 pounds. So
so you like a medium. A medium would probably do for you. Okay, so I have small and mediums left. So we will Ali will get your details, and I'll make sure. And then you have to go to jiu-jitsu to show them.
That's rad. Dude, I'll have no choice at that point to get back in there. That's awesome.
So, yeah, just because we're talking about William Wallace, it made me think. So, but yeah, that's there you go, man. There we go. Like we're an hour in. We've been Charles Manson, the Beach Boys. We've talked some deep philosophy, and now we're back at William Wallace in a rash guard that I designed. I always say, so I've got, I took a picture recently of like 4 rash guards that I had designed. And it's like, and I posted on Instagram, it's like, if you ever feel like a dumbass, I have designed and got 4 rash guards made. Like, how, like, when people go, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Do it. Like, fucking do it. Just,
yeah.
That's right.
People,
That's right, man. People overthink everything.
100%. It's like even with this podcast, isn't it, Chris? Like I said, Matt, we started it with just me and Chris and our phones. And once we started getting guests, as Chris said, we had Clint Emerson on like episode 23 or 24 when we had no right getting Clint Emerson on. And I just messaged them. And everyone said, well, number one, the 2 most common questions we get asked is, number one, how'd you get the guests? And I go, come here, I'll let you into the secret. Come here. I ask them. And they go, but what happens if but what happens if they say no? I go, okay. What happens if they say yes?
That's right. That's right. You just ask somebody else.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's just if
if
someone says no, you go,
that's all right. And then when somebody starts asking you, then you try to put the good, you put the good vibes out there by going, absolutely, man, let's jump on. How can I help you too? And that's the way the world goes around, man. It's not that difficult.
That's all it is, man. And we would say the same thing to you, Matt, as we've said to everybody else. If you're ever in Scotland, if you're ever doing something that requires information about Scotland, just hit us up. We will 100% help you in any way that we can, because as you said, that is what makes the world go round.
That's awesome, man. No,
just being, and it's not even like, there's a lot of nowadays, especially on Facebook is terrible for, people caring, my granddad's died or my mum died, and everybody will go, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And really, they don't give a shit. How many people are actually going to come round, cool, man, I'll be there. And come around and say, come on, man, let's go for a walk. Let's talk this thing out. Not many.
That's right.
So, when we say those things, we actually mean them. Yeah, man. It's we're always happy to help people.
And the thing is, man, if you pay attention long enough, and this goes for not just, not just the integrity of people's words around things like that, but if you just pay attention to people long enough, you can, when it's the courtesy, oh, I'm so sorry, or when somebody is genuine and what do you need, or it's the when it's the courtesy, hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. And when it's the, hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you, fucking let me know, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just not that long ago, a friend of Ali's, they wanted a girl who wanted to start a podcast, and it was about motherhood. About motherhood.
Yeah.
We went, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I like it. So there was, 2 friends, and they were going to do this podcast, and they weren't sure how to start. So I'd said I didn't know the girl, and I said, well, we started off with phones, just speaking at their phone, and then we got some like really crappy headsets with a mic built in here. And I said, if she wants my headset, I'll give it to us so they can start. And then tell her we'll jump on. Let's do a test run on a podcast. Let's do half an hour, see how they feel. And it's just like, so many people have gave us time that feels like, hey, we should help some other people.
Totally.
And then, that they ended up not doing it because, one of them didn't want to do it and all this kind of stuff. Sure. But I just feel like if everybody was just nicer and just go back to, funnily enough, you were talking about Mike, I spoke to him last week, and, we were talking, can I get back to like a little bit more faith and just being like a good fucking dude. Just be nice.
Yeah, totally.
Can you help somebody? Can you help somebody? Okay, help them.
Right.
And you don't have to post about it. You don't have to tell Facebook you've done it. Just help the person.
Just go do it. It's not like people, that's one of the differences on campus here is that's how you survive staying here at this campus, is you treat other people well and you work hard. That's it.
Yeah.
All the other stuff is just the details of it, right? If you're not willing to put out and be productive on something, then it's not going to work out. And if you're a dick, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
It's really that.
And me and Ali were talking after we spoke to Mike on last Wednesday, and we're talking about, because I said I'd done the Keltman triathlon, and the ballot for that They get thousands of entries every year, and there's 200 entries. That's how many people get into it. So the chances of getting are very rare. But what I said, and I did this, when I was boxing, is shake everybody's hand. Ask them how, just be nice to everybody. And they'll all go, I remember that guy. He was actually fucking quite nice.
Yes.
It's
not magic, dude. That's so this goes, on this campus, every studio is just a mixed age group of young people, right? So the kind of the 5, 6, 7-ish years old, they're all together. You got kind of the 8, 9, 10, 11, they're all together. You got kind of middle school age, you got kind of high school age. But they start out every day in their morning meeting. It's literally just a circle that they're sitting in. They stand up, they look at the next person in the eye, they say good morning, they say their name, they shake their hand, and that person turns and they do it, and they just go around in the circle, right? So they're used to just doing that every day. They stand out in front. We got high schoolers that stand out in front in the morning, and as the other students walk up, as parents walk up, they say good morning and they shake their hand, right? We just instill all of that. So we got parents that come in to come visit, and you get an 18-year-old that walks over and says, hey, my name is so-and-so, and nice to meet you, and shake their hand. And you would think we just introduced these parents to Jesus himself, because they're just like, that kid just came up and looked me in the eye and shook my hand. Like, I will do anything for that kid, right? And that shows you just how far away we've gone from those good old-fashioned, those things. But it also shows you there's a lot of opportunity there just to be a good person. The first challenge in Apogee, the first month is to just shift their mindset. And these young men start calling everybody sir or ma'am, and they start shaking hands and opening doors for women. That's literally the first challenge that first month. Is everybody you come across is yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You start opening doors, you start shaking hands. You're making sure you're doing those all the time. Doesn't matter if the person is 90 or they're 9. You're saying yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And you start shifting your mentality around all of that and taking control of those relationships. And it changes everything.
One of the things that, is quite interesting, because one of the things that I started to do, try to think of time's gotten weird since COVID became around. So maybe 3 years ago. It's like there's a before COVID and after COVID. But I think maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I just decided. I don't know why. Just every time I spoke to somebody, whether it was filling up with fuel or in a shop or whatever it is, just to say, "Have a nice day."
Yep.
And the amount of people who were like, "What?
Yep.
Did you just say that?" And but I think it actually, I think it actually does make, because whenever somebody says it to me, you go, "Oh, thank you." You do. And I think it's one of those things that it's just I don't know why I don't know why I do it. I started to do it, but I did, and I continue to do it, and it makes people I don't know, they just kind of go, "Oh, this is unusual," but it shouldn't be. Just be nice to people.
Right. Yeah. There's no net negative for doing that. And when our young people will do it, man, it just separates them from their peers even more. It just opens more doors for them.
Yeah, and I always open doors for people. But then I was brought up to have manners, which seems a little rarer. Respect your elders. Right. If you're on a train or a bus and there's no seats left and an old lady comes on, you give her your seat. There is no reason for you to not give her the seat. You give her the seat.
That's right. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's man, we've been talking for ages last week.
I was going to say you've been very gracious with your time, Matt.
We don't want to take up too much of your time, Matt. But it's been I have to say, it's been one of my favourites.
It's been a great combo.
It's always
just before we. Sorry, you go, Chris.
And I was just going to say, I don't know if you find this as well, Matt, but it's always easier to speak to people who have, a podcast or speak for a living. It's so easy. You speak to some people who don't maybe speak publicly all that often, and it's, hey man, what's your favorite color? Blue.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, man. I agree. You find out very quickly. Yeah, find out very quickly that that's the case. The only time, and I know you guys will wrap, but the only time that this was that actually proved to not be true is I had an Emmy award-winning TV personality.
You big name dropper.
Who will remain nameless on the podcast. And it was the hardest interview I ever had, period. Because what I found out was he's so good at just the production part and the editing part that you never know that he doesn't have a ton of confidence. He's got a speech impediment. He's got all of these things. So even though he is a widely known TV personality, he incorporates that. It was by far the hardest interview I've ever had. But outside of that weird anomaly, I could not agree with you more, man.
So talking about that, what did you learn from that interview?
That's a really good that's a really good question. I think that was, and it was early on. So I think what I learned right there, first and foremost, was that I would never know how the podcast was going to go. And that definitely proved to be true. And so, I would have some guests where I'm like, this is going to be cool, I guess, like we'll see how this goes. And they were amazing episodes, some of my favorite to this day. And then I had some where I'm like, and like him, where I was like, oh, dude, I am so pumped to have this guest on. And it's like, that's fine. Right? You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
No.
And that's
we've been quite lucky. There's only still to this day, and as I say, today's our 70th episode we've recorded with yourself, Matt. We've only had one episode where we got off it and the pair of us were like, he was a fucking idiot. And it was a guy who he looked a little bit like me, but about 70 pounds heavier. So Chris called him Fat Ali. And you can actually see, if you ever go back and watch the video, you can see the minute where the dawning realization happens in Chris's eyes. Because obviously, like we've got just now, you can see everyone on screen. And you kind of see Chris go. And he messaged me, he's like, he looks like Fat Ali. And for the rest of the conversation, all we could think of was the guy. And it was,
that's fair.
And he was an asshole as well at the end of it. Like one of those ones where he wasn't a very big player. He was local. I'm just going to name him because he's not listening. He's a local wrestling promoter. And I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and I've been to a couple of his shows and then met him. And I said, look, do you want to jump on and we can do a little bit of promotion for Discovery Wrestling because it was in the middle of lockdown, keep the name out there. Like you said, do a bit of nice for nice.
Yeah.
And he didn't even reshare it. He didn't tweet it. He didn't even mention it once. And we were
I will always, we generally will always buy, if somebody has some merch, they come on the show with, we'll go buy a t-shirt, we'll get a book. And, I bought his t-shirts.
Yeah.
Zero interest in speaking. It just, fucking hell, man. Like, we've spoke to Clint Emerson, you fucking asshole.
Totally. God.
As far as. However, as we start winding it down, you mentioned a few things that you're involved in, Matt. So do you want to name anywhere where we can send people to get more information, any of your social media websites, and we'll tag this in the notes and tag it up in the video and the releases when we put it out as well.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. If you're interested in what the schools are doing, Acton Academy, it's like action without the I, actonacademy.org is the place to go to see what we're doing from a global perspective, because we got, we're in multiple countries. ApogeeStrong.com, of course, is what is the mentorship program that Tim and I have. And then I'm probably most active on Instagram, and that's just my name, Matt Beaudreau, whatever it is. It's the easiest way to find me.
And do you have any merch? Is that something that you have?
We do. We just, man. I've got an alley that I work with too, and then we've designed a whole bunch of shirts and stuff for Apogee Strong. So I can shoot the link over.
Okay, we'll grab some of those. That'll be cool, man. Man. Thanks for your time, and
pleasure.
If you happen to be speaking to Chad Mendes and he says, I've always wanted to speak to some Scottish guys, just send them our way. We'll have them.
Dude, you'd be surprised how often that comes up. So I will definitely have to.
Yeah, man. I will send them a free rash guard if they do it.
When he sees that, it's a
we'll get Ali will get some details off you, and I'll get one of those off to you tomorrow.
Right on, man.
And that was awesome, man. It was a great hour and 15 minutes. If you're ever free again, we'd love to do it again.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you guys. Well done.
Thanks very much, Matt. Well, let's call it. It's episode 70 of the Silly Goose Gang podcast with Matt Beaudreau, done and dusted.
The Silly Goose Gang podcast.